So keep an eye out for them. Another minute or two, and then I'll do a brief introduction, Sarah, and then just turn it over to you.
Sounds good.
Okay, why don't we get started? I want to welcome everybody to the last City Forum of this spring. And I want to, since it's our last forum, to offer particular thanks to Brittany Faulkner, who's been my collaborator in City Forum this semester, and she's done a terrific job, and she's been great. So really thank her for her work and keeping City Forum going and keeping it recorded and et cetera, et cetera. So thanks a lot, Brittany. Really appreciate it. It's been great to work with you. And I'm sorry for the kind of truncated schedule this spring, but between the snowpocalypse and spring break and when Easter was scheduled and so on and so forth, we had 2 fewer sessions than we would normally have in a spring term, but that's just the way it works and the times we're in to some extent. Hopefully next year we might actually be back in physical space, and which in the case of City Forum involved a lunch. So maybe hopefully we'll be back in that mode next fall. But we have a terrific speaker for our last City Forum series, Sarah Tober, who is the president of Scenic Texas. Sarah's a UT alumni with an MBA from the McCombs School of Business. And she leads an organization with really compelling roots in Texas. And that it goes back to the work of Lady Bird Johnson in the mid to late 60s, where she, as the First Lady, took a really pretty strong initiative to clean up signage clutter along U.S. highways and roads, improve environmental dead zones around our major highways, and kind of really started the ball rolling, thinking about how scenery and aesthetics is sort of deeply linked to significant environmental issues and significant environmental planning issues. Like the former First Lady, Sarah, in the work of Scenic Texas, is much more than just beautification or getting rid of some signs and so on and so forth. It really kind of complements and drives environmental restoration, green infrastructure, and even climate change mitigation. So it's much broader, or it has much broader impacts in a number of ways. So it's my pleasure to turn it over to Sarah Tober. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oda, and thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be talking about Scenic Cities to UT students. It's great to be back here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started on this presentation. So give me 1 second and do let me know if it looks, if everybody is able to see it. Okay, cool. Awesome. So yes, one of the things that we say about the Scenic City program is how much it helps with the resilience of communities as they use this as a tool for education, for urban planning, and for best practices moving forward. So just to give you a little bit of background, Dr. Odin did a great job of kind of touching on that highlight about Lady Bird Johnson. And it was really her vision that has inspired our organization. Scenic Texas has been around now for 37 years, and we've been primarily volunteer-based. And we really do believe in Texas the Beautiful, the vision that First Lady had for it. And then, of course, her taking it to DC to then focus on America the Beautiful. And, she really understood that beautification integrated economic development, quality of life, all of those things. And, she was very focused on planting wildflowers along roadways too. And one of the reasons that her and LBJ were so focused on the Highway Beautification Act of the 70s is because they were driving back and forth from Austin to DC. And so they were seeing how visual pollution affected these beautiful scenic drives, and how you can have the physical impact of a nice scenic drive can have on you mentally as well. So yeah, we're really kind of just trying to carry the torch of the vision that she had. And we've done that in 3 different ways. We've done that through advocacy, through education, and through what I call collective impact, through chapters, partnerships, and alliances. And so just to give you a little bit of background on our advocacy efforts, we've worked with the Texas legislature for years. We've worked with TxDOT and even more specifically their Green Ribbon program at times, but also with their right-of-ways program. And then we've worked with the cities, the counties, and sometimes even the courts, depending on the scenic issue and how we're approaching it. And when I say advocacy and kind of lobbying the Texas legislature, we're not taking legislators out to lunch or vacations. We're going to them and educating them on why this is an important issue to Texans and to quality of life long term. So that's the kind of advocacy we're doing, and then under the education tenet that I'll be talking more about obviously today is the Scenic Cities certification program. And that program has been in place for 11 years. We have 18 program partners and we have 85 certified cities to date. And then again, in that collective impact bucket, we have a number of chapters throughout the state that carries on the mission work of our organization. And they do that in a variety of ways. Some of our chapters, like the Fort Worth chapter, for instance, they're very involved in other nonprofit organizations that are focused on kind of environmental conservation or beautification. And then so they do streetscape enhancements, which means they do esplanade plantings, or they've taken pocket parks and planted them and turned them over to the city and for maintenance. So the projects vary from chapter to chapter, but there's some great work being done throughout the state. And so currently, kind of where we are today is, some of the advocacy work that I've been working on in the last couple of years. Kendall County wanted to pass a dark sky resolution, so I helped their commissioner to write it and worked with our partner Hill Country Alliance, and it was passed unanimously by their commissioners. That's a point of pride for me because I grew up in Kendall County, and that's where I learned about the dark sky, and I appreciated the Milky Way. And as you know, we have expanded our mission over the years. Dark sky is a tenet of the Scenic City program, and it's something that is important to our mission, as we feel as though that is a natural scenic resource that we don't want to lose. And there's also an economic impact with that, as well, as we are seeing with astrotourism becoming more and more popular in our state. Other issues, worked with Representative Goodwin out in Spicewood. There were 2 billboards that were erected at the edge of a cemetery. So we are working to protect cemeteries as kind of a sacred space, much like green space, and parks are protected from billboards. So we do want to protect our cemeteries moving forward too. And then in the Atlanta district, we had an issue of TxDOT expanding their right-of-way. They basically doubled the right-of-way to 65 feet arbitrarily, which meant that hundreds of acres of trees were being taken down. And so we've been involved with that, pleading for them to not make this a new standard for highway improvements, because that does go outside of the guidance of TxDOT and outside of the guidance of the Federal Highway Administration to double that right of way. They really only need about 35 to 45 feet at the most. So we kind of deal with a myriad of scenic issues. You probably were thinking I was going to just talk about planting wildflowers, but we're doing all kinds of things within this realm. We've written a couple of amicus briefs. One specifically is going to the Supreme Court of the United States, and it's in support of the city of Austin. They've been sued by 2 billboard companies who want to change. There's about 750 billboards in the Austin area, and they want to change some of that inventory into digital. So they want to basically have 85 digital billboards. And what we know about digital billboards, in addition to them being very distracting to drivers, is that they take up the energy of about 25 to 35 houses each. And then the light pollution they cause, of course, especially against the dark sky. So these billboard companies have sued the city of Austin related to this, and trying to get these billboards digitized. And we put together an amicus brief with every scenic chapter across America, and a number of other partners like the Texas Municipal League, and even the Outdoor Advertising Agency actually joined us on this mission, along with like Environment Texas, Hill Country Alliance, and Austin Outside, which is it's a network of nonprofits here of about, I believe there's about 50 nonprofits that are focused on outdoor activities and environmental conservation. And then, we try to educate folks too, because you can pass all the laws you want and you can have all the regulations you want, but when people don't understand the values of scenic beauty and the integration of it in their community, then you kind of fail the mission. So we focus on educating the broader public through a new website we've launched this last year that has a number of resources and case studies, because we do have 37 years of institutional knowledge on making Texas more scenic. And then we have the 1 million Trees Across Texas initiative that we just launched this last year. And this is related to the vision of one of our Scenic Texas members who wants to plant 1 million trees across Texas. And we're very supportive of it, especially along roads and highways and even in parks. So we've kind of started with some of the Scenic Cities and offering them these trees. And then we're partnering with the Green Ribbon program of TxDOT and with the Texas Forest Service in providing best practices on plantings and maintenance. But what we know from the Green Ribbon program is that these plantings serve not only scenic visual beauty, but they also serve carbon sequestration along roads. And so this Green Ribbon program was founded specifically for attainment and high traffic urban areas. So there's a number of areas through the state that are kind of left out of this program simply because they don't have the amount of traffic. And so we're hoping that this is going to be one of the solutions to that need for the rest of the state. And then of course, the Scenic City program improvements this year, we brought on the the Association of the American Society of Landscape Architects Texas chapter, and then also Dr. Stephen Pedigo, I'm sure you are all familiar with. He is also going to be serving on our program committee, our program partner committee that kind of oversees our applicants and our processes every year. And then here in Austin, we've joined a number of networks and groups to further our impact and to further our voice. One of the groups here is on the east side where I'm at. It's called Raisin in the Sun, and she's actually also a UT alum, but she is doing some incredible work within her community and community cleanups in outdoor art installations, and she even worked with the Highline Hotel and the Lamar Bridge here recently, if you've caught any of those. But one of the things that we're working together on is she's trying to turn these parking lots that are empty, that are owned by a developer, and he's not going to be developing it for 10 years, into temporary park space. And we're very supportive of these little pocket parks around the east side, and we have offered our expertise in having some raised gardens and some programming around that. So I think these kinds of solutions are going to be really big for the state of Texas when it comes to the population growth, meeting that population growth, and then providing them, providing enough green space. I think we definitely saw that in Austin. We supported the slow street movement during COVID because people needed more connectivity and more green space. And we, as much as Austin's always been known for its parks and green space, we've also seen the diminishment of that with development over time, and the need for us to really focus on ensuring that we do have enough green space for all residents, especially those that live in smaller abodes with no yard and that sort of thing. So those are kind of the examples of things that we've been working on in Scenic Texas. This is our mission, that we preserve, enhance the visual character of Texas, especially as seen by travelers along the road. And because of our unique position in that, we feel as though the Scenic City is a perfect extension of our mission and vision. So go right into that. Again, kind of the background on this, Scenic City program was established 11 years ago, and these are 18 program partners that are a part of that. When you have American Planning Association of Texas and Urban Land Institute of Houston and Austin and San Antonio, and the Texas Historical Commission and Texas Economic Development Commission, it's a really interesting nexus of folks that are really that really helped craft this program, and the visual tenets that we use as a basis for grading community applications. So our program partners are incredible. They've really helped us to keep a nice viewpoint of all of these tenets and how they work together for quality of life, and really reflect that civic pride too. So we administer the program. Our 18 program partners help to review those applicants and review the program, and to keep us on the right path. And then the Scenic City program, it really recognizes municipalities that implement high quality scenic standards and reflect that for public roadways and public spaces. Those are the two things that we really focus on. And then, cities with those strong scenic standards we see reflect civic pride and benefit from a solid sense of community character and are well positioned for economic growth. So how it works is that we have a detailed set of Scenic City model standards, and we'll kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into what one of those tenets look like. And again, this is typically as it pertains to public roadways and public spaces, as that falls within our mission. And so any Texas city can apply for this program, and they'll get an objective review of the existing municipal ordinances and plans compared to the Scenic City model. And what we like to say about this is that this is not a beauty contest, but this is about beautification. So these cities are not submitting to us photos of their beautiful city. They are submitting ordinances and plans as it pertains to the development and growth of their community and city. And then we review that application, and this process is really a diagnostic tool for these cities. We work very closely with them throughout the process so that they understand some of the best practices that we've viewed over time, and they understand their grade very well. The assessment is points-based, and it's ranked into categories, and then every applicant receives that detailed scored evaluation. So one of the things that we kind of say too is, if a city hires a consultant to do the kind of work that we're doing for them, it would be between $5,000 and $10,000 to review their ordinances like that, and to kind of do that deep dive into their planning. And we provide those for $750. And they submit the application. Once they are ranked, they have that certification for 5 years. And throughout that 5 years, they can rank up, which we see a number of communities doing. And then at the end of that 5 years, they would recertify with our program. And this is kind of the pathway to certification. So we open up applications, which everything's online. The application is online. And so we open that up in February and we close it at the end of April. We start out with having a call with these cities to kind of field any questions that they may have about the application process. And then we give them their credentials to log in and they dive in. And then we continue to provide them feedback throughout the application process. And then in July, we should have our preliminary score, which will be released to them. And then they'll have a month to kind of, some of these cities, communities, they want a higher ranking. And so we've seen a number of them pass ordinances within that month in order to achieve a higher ranking. But then we finalize those scores in August, and we have a celebratory reception at the Texas Municipal League annual conference that's usually in October. So it's a rigorous process. We tell our communities it can take about 40 hours of time to get through this application. And this is why these are the tenets of our program. These are the visual standards that we establish with these communities. And so it's streetscapes, it's sign controls. So we're looking for them to be putting billboards on the road to attrition in their communities. There's parks and trails and open spaces, ensuring there's enough of those for the residents within their community and for their projected growth. There's littering, graffiti abatement. There's lighting standards. Again, the dark sky lighting has become more and more important to our organization over time. And so that is a tenet of our program as well. Utility and cable line programs, the burial of those is what we hope communities are working towards achieving. Design integrity, the landscaping, even landscaping during construction processes, ensuring that they have some protections in place when they're developing a lot. And then dumpster screening, unique municipal features. Dr. Oden and I were kind of talking about our work with the Texas Historical Commission and the Main Street program, for instance. So that would be considered a special program if they have that kind of in place. And then we've also worked with the Keep Texas Beautiful chapter a lot of times in the community. Sometimes they're the ones even doing the application in tandem with. Sometimes the city has a planning department, and sometimes they're pretty small. They don't have those resources yet. So this is where we try to help them to establish those standards early on. And we've put together an application guide. Kendra Ralston, our program coordinator, has done some excellent work. She's also a UT alum. She was our intern last year, and we brought her on as our program coordinator this year. And she's been improving the program immensely. So she helped to put together this application guide because it can be pretty complicated for folks depending on how familiar they are with the ordinances and plans that their community has within these visual standard tenets. And so I'm kind of got a for instance for you. So this is one of those tenets is the unity of design. And so we're looking for a community to have a unified development code or be working towards that, and really establishing just kind of weaving, nature and the built environment together in harmony. So having this UDC is always a good way to kind of establish that cultural thread that will be seen throughout the community in materials chosen, in finish outs. And so that's a good for instance there. We do have within the visual environment standards, there are 3 threshold standards that a community really needs to get through in order to qualify for this program, and that is landscaping, tree planting, and then sign regulation. So those are our 3 threshold tenants for that. But as you can see, like with the unity of design and having this guidebook for them, we kind of give them, some examples of what that means. And then we point to best practices that other certified communities have done within their communities, so that they can kind of utilize those codes and ordinances in creating or crafting one for their own community. So these are our certified cities, and these are the rankings. We have, recognized, bronze, silver, gold, and then the creme de la creme is platinum. So, so we've had a number of these communities have ranked up over the years. A lot of our platinum ranked communities came in at various levels, and they've worked their way up to platinum over the years, which is very exciting. And we even have, while the city of Austin is not currently a scenic city, we'd love for them to be. We do find that this program is really speaks a lot to, sorry about that, to small and mid-sized communities. A lot of the larger communities have a very extensive planning department, and they're already focused on what the growth of their community is going to look like and have those ordinances in place. So we find that this is a really good tool for small to mid-sized communities, but we still love to have our larger communities to be a part of that as well. So, and I included the 13 cities around Austin that are some scenic cities around Austin that you can catch. We've got Taylor and Hutto, Georgetown, Marble Falls, Horseshoe Bay. We're super excited to have Cedar Park a part of it, and Lago Vista and Lakeway. So a number of these communities, again, have been with us for a broad part of the program for the last 10 years. So it's exciting to see those kinds of focus, and you can see their own kind of cultural fabric within their communities too when you go out there. I mean, like Westlake Hills has a lot of tree line drives, and so it's in Lago Vista. When I was there giving them their certificate this last year, it was really cool to see how much dark sky lighting they have in place at night there. So yeah, so just a kind of, we're nearing the end here. We're currently working with, we have 85 certified cities, and this class of cities for 2021 is looking to be about 24 cities. There's going to be, we're working with 19 recertifications, 1 rank up, and 4 new cities. And that's not too bad, especially after we're still recovering from COVID, obviously. So, we're excited to be engaging with these communities, working with them daily to assess their ordinances and plans. We do have a goal of 100 cities next year. And we have some other partners we're targeting to bring about, including the AIA of Texas. And then we're going to be working over the summer on case studies around those 12 visual environment tenants. And we've just been awarded a grant from Stillwater Foundation. So we'll be able to bring on a grad student, we hope, from UT or somewhere else, but that would help us with these case studies, kind of creating some visual case studies of what these ordinances and plans look like. A lot of times you'll see with city council members and mayors and stuff, they're not city planners. And so for them, seeing an ordinance in that language translated into the visual component that it actually is when it's implemented in your city it will help to kind of bridge those gaps of why those ordinances and plans are important to have in place. So we think that these case studies, the compendium of them, will be kind of a best practices guide, again, for smaller to mid-sized communities on crafting ordinances around these tenants. And then our 1 Million Trees Across Texas program is something that we're focused on. We're going to be planting about 1,200 trees this year in the fall, and we're already identifying partner cities for those plantings. We've got a few of them already. So we're going to continue to offer that as a benefit to our Scenic Cities as well. And we're hoping to scale that program to be planting tens of thousands of trees a year instead of just 1,200, but we're getting there slowly but surely. And then we've had a lot of interest from counties about a Scenic County program. And what's interesting about counties versus cities is that counties don't have as much regulatory power as cities do. They don't have ordinances and plans in that regard, but they do have some of the counties, especially Travis County. It's one of the only counties in Texas that has a land use plan for the next 5 years. And because counties oversee county roads and parks, that is an obvious extension of our mission. And so we're looking at developing a Scenic County program that will help to empower these counties to implement visual standards within their powers that they're given from the Texas legislature. So we are developing that plan currently. And just kind of mentioning that grad student internship again, I'll be starting to promote that for applications for the summer. But if you or somebody you know is interested, please send them my way. I would love to talk to them in creating this compendium of best practices. And so this is the end. This is my contact information and Kendra's contact information. If you haven't had a chance yet, jump onto our website, take a look at some of these Scenic Cities and some of the ordinances that we've been able to help with over the years. We've looked at over 5,000 ordinances through the duration of this program. So it's a very extensive program in that regard. Is there any questions?
Hey, well, yeah, thanks a lot, Sarah. That was great. I mean, really understanding, more deeply what you do. It's really, a lot of these issues are right at the heart of kind of what we work on and think about in planning. So, it's really interesting, and I know you've really scaled up your activities. So, kudos. And just, I'll contact you after this session, and I'll give a contact for the person who kind of handles our internships and stuff, so we can get out the notification that you're looking for interns. So
awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so let me open it up. Do folks have questions for Sarah?
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitch.
So I'm actually part of a group working to preserve a cemetery in East Austin, and it's actually a cemetery that's mostly people of color, and it's been very much ignored and neglected, and it's an industrial area of Austin, right near Ben White Freeway. Do you have any tips or recommendations on how smaller groups should approach this scenic topic? Since we don't have a lot of power, do you help people like that, or what's your recommendation?
Yeah, so my recommendation, if you haven't talked to them yet, our program partner, the Texas Historical Commission, has a cemeteries program. So they actually specifically look at the preservation of these historic cemeteries and things that can be done. So they are a great resource on that. Specifically, and I know that there's been a big movement within the preservation world, specifically around these cemeteries that have kind of been forgotten, or that are even at risk for being developed, or something to that effect too. So I know this is a growing topic, but that's my best recommendation. And as far as Scenic Texas, we don't do a lot with cemeteries. We just happen to be involved in this one issue regarding these billboards being erected at the edge of cemeteries, because it came to our attention that this can be done. And in that particular case, that cemetery is adjacent to a business building, and they were able to erect not one but two billboards, because they said that they have two businesses within that building. And then the cemetery, and I don't know if there is one at this one that you're working on specifically, but a number of cemeteries have, it's like a property owners association, basically, that kind of oversee what is being done with the cemetery in terms of preserving it and protecting it and enhancing it and that sort of thing. And so this particular alliance, they actually did vote for these billboards to be erected there, that they were okay with that. And that was one of the things that TxDOT looked at as well. But that might be something that might be of interest to you in terms of crafting a group that would be kind of the caretakers or the protectors of this cemetery too, that you have an official kind of historic preservation association around it too.
Mitch, I don't know if you noticed, but Dave Sullivan posted a link in the chat. There is I get, maybe you already know about this, but there's an Austin Save Cemeteries group that, if you haven't been in contact with, might be helpful too.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, we've been in contact with them as well. It's very much, it doesn't have a Friends of group, unfortunately, but I did find out recently it's on the Camino Real de los Tejas by the National Park Service. So do you have any recommendations for that as well, like approaching them for to be incorporated in that?
You know, I've had to approach the National Scenic Byways program, and totally different subject area, but we're looking to get a state scenic byway program implemented here in the state. We don't have one. We're the only state that doesn't have one, which is just silly. So we're trying to get Texas on the map so that we can be part of the National Scenic Byway Program, which would open us up to federal funding of beautification projects along roads that are protected. So it will be a boon to our tourism and economic development as well. And I know that there's a woman at TxDOT who's been our contact. And while we don't have a program established, if we do get that accomplished this session, she will then kind of be the program coordinator for us. So I'm sure that there is somebody here within Texas that would also be a same sort of liaison for you with this particularly.
Thanks so much. Appreciate what you're
doing. We had another question in the chat from Tom. Do you all work with cycling and regional trails programs and activities like regional roads, state highways, bike trail links and stuff like that?
Yeah, we actually, we just had our first inaugural fundraiser, was a scenic ride for Texas. And we did it out there at Vista Brewing in Driftwood. And we did it along the William B. Travis Heritage Trail that was being, it was being recognized by the Driftwood Historical Preservation Society because they worked to lobby the legislature to protect that stretch of road. And it's a 12-mile stretch of road that they have succeeded in getting protected with the state legislature. And what that really means, regulatorily speaking, is it just means no new billboards on that stretch of highway. And we hadn't had another scenic road designated in a while, but I think it's been over 10, 15 years now. Now we do have 30 stretches of road that are protected under our transportation code currently. And so that's part of the Scenic Byways program initiative, is that we want those 30 stretches of road to fall under this program, so that we can say for the first time that we have scenic byways in Texas. We have official scenic highways and byways in Texas. And then, of course, that would open them up to the National Scenic Byways Program designation and also federal funding. But as far as we do focus within our chapters, especially on those urban paths, on those on biking, pedestrian, connectivity within a city. And so through our Scenic City program, we do address it to a certain extent too, the importance of that connectivity, and even, ADA standards for the size of sidewalks, that cities are implementing that, and ensuring that those standards are met as well. We, again, getting involved during COVID with the slow streets here in Austin too, it's really important that cities are planning for good connectivity with multiple modes of transportation, walking, biking, driving, and then that connectivity is also focused around connection to green spaces and parks, so that people are able to walk to the park very easily, no matter where they live in the state of Texas. So, and we've been working some with the Texas Trees Foundation in Dallas, because they have an incredible program called the Cool Schools program, where they're basically turning schools into parks. They're through curriculum and through tree plantings, so that their goal is that every resident in Dallas will be less than 5 miles from a park, basically, throughout the city. And I think it's a very honorable goal to have that kind of connectivity.
But like in more kind of rural areas, do you interface with the kind of hike and bike crowd, or?
We do, to a certain extent. We're looking. I've reached out to Bike Texas, and I know there's a Bike Austin as well, and we've had some preliminary conversations, but we haven't been able to sit down to the table to see how we can really enhance each other's work yet. But we certainly do still advocate for that within the Scenic City program, within our within the ordinances that we suggest as best practices for a community to adopt.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Anything else in the chat? No? Any other questions from anyone? Well, I have a couple of questions, Sarah. First, I mean, as I mentioned, I've done a little bit of work with on the historic preservation side, particularly kind of related to Main Street. So, in terms of the kind of signage issue, I mean, one challenge, particularly for smaller, medium-sized towns that have had a highway bypass. I mean, they want to get people around the town, so it does it so they, those bypass cities really have to work hard on signage and wayfinding to get people to get off the road to go to their town or city.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess, I'm sure you don't prohibit wayfinding signs, but, is there a particular kind of little regulatory set of standards for those kinds of, wayfinding signs into kind of smaller towns, particularly those that have been bypassed by highway projects?
Yes, yeah, we do have some signage standards that we promote as best practices, and kind of banning bandit signs, for instance. But those signs that they do implement, we focus on them having some high standards for them, that they are, integrated with thoughtfulness into the environment or the built environment that they are in.
Yeah. I mean, I just know, when I've traveled, and, maybe this is kind of sad. I mean, the old signs, you had like 15 signs saying, get off at exit 23 for this, get off for exit 23, of time and time again. I mean, that did stimulate me to get off sometimes.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I completely understand. And in fact, we're seeing with like Buckies across America that it's actually becoming a scenic issue.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We've seen, I believe I was just reading about, I think it was a community in, I want to say like West Virginia, or no, it had to been North Carolina, that was like, nope, not in my backyard sort of situation. And we get that a lot. That kind of thought process, but they didn't want what they called a kind of a gas station circus, and then all the signs that lead to it as well. But we also know, economically speaking, that model is working from a business standpoint. They're doing very well in expanding around across America, and they're providing kind of a standard of service in what you're getting from the guest to the store experience. So there's definitely an economic development argument there, but that also kind of goes back to the broader the broader issue of the franchising and franchise coming into your community and trying to meld with the fabric of it, versus it always being the cookie cutter box that they have typically. So we haven't weighed in on it, of course, because we have our plate full, of course, but we are seeing that is becoming more of an issue, and trying to get drive traffic to, and I'm sure you've seen, for another good, for instance, is Fredericksburg. When you're driving out to Fredericksburg now, I mean, it used to be a very kind of sleepy drive along 290, lots of rolling plains of wildflowers and that sort of thing. And now we're seeing a ton of signs and a ton of wineries out there as well. So some of it is, and I think that's where we are focused on our mission as an organization, is that development and growth is going to happen. And we know that you can't stop that. So why not have some good plans in place and ordinances in place that really articulate what is important to the community and how you can keep those standards in place while you're growing and developing, to ensure good quality of life for residents and tourists alike.
I wonder, it strikes me that if somehow, increasingly digital navigation is becoming more and more integrative. In other words, you can look on your phone and not only find out where exit X is, but find out what's at exit X. I mean, it seems like digital navigation might kind of reduce the need to have like sign after sign after sign,
I believe so too. I imagine that's going to be the next iteration. I mean, because you can even see on digital navigation, what the speed limit is. So if you miss that sign, it's already telling you on navigation what it is. So I do think that is true. And that's something that we kind of deal with this with TxDOT too. That they have a safety program that they put into place, and one of their measurements for it was the amount of signage they were putting out. So we were getting, Hill Country residents up in arms because they are putting a dozen, arrow signs on a curve because they're being incentivized. Their district is being incentivized by TxDOT to do that. And it's just kind of interesting, especially since TxDOT also regulates our billboards along our highways because of the Highway Beautification Act. So yeah, we're seeing some interesting stuff when it comes to signage and seeing how important it is to the gateways to a community as well. Even within the Texas legislature, they're trying to kind of do away with the ETJ um, uh, being restricted to a city's ordinances related to billboards and signs. But we know what an impact that makes on driving into a city when you're just bombarded with signs versus getting to enjoy the architectural beauty of a community and hopefully intertwined with nature and tree plantings and things like that. So yeah, those signs are definitely a distraction to drivers.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, if you have too many signs, it's more confusing than if you have fewer.
Right.
But yeah, I just had kind of one more question. So in these kind of projects that really kind of improve landscapes along highways and so on, like tree planting and even wildflower planting, gardening. Because there's lots of million tree initiatives around the country, and they've been successful on some level, but one kind of, I guess you could say, flaw or challenge is, it's easy to plant the trees. Everybody's excited about that, but maintaining them over years is a huge thing. And a lot of these programs have planted a lot of trees and they have really a very high attrition rate because they're not properly, fed, watered, maintained, et cetera, et cetera. So as you're rolling out these kind of things, and this could even apply to, other kind of landscapes like wildflowers or grasses or whatever, it's not directly in your bailiwick, but what kind of things get built in to try to maintain these improvements if they're executed?
That's a really good question, Dr. Oden. Actually, we're in a unique position because we've been working with the Green Ribbon program for so long. We've learned so much from them in their tree plantings. So TxDOT does a tree planting, and here's a good example of that is, excuse me. A good example of that is the tree planting along 290 by 35. So they did that tree planting as part of the Green Ribbon program, and they maintained it for 2 years, and then they turned it over to the city. So you have to have a maintenance plan with these tree plantings. And so, for instance, our last tree planting in San Marcos, we did in partnership with the San Marcos River Foundation. So they are, River Authority. So they are actually maintaining that planting, and we're probably going to plant more trees with them this fall too. So it's really critical to identify good partners. And it may be the city, it may be the county that maintains it, that can water these plantings. And the long-term plan after that, it may be in some of these plantings, we've been talking with TxDOT because they have the capability of doing some plantings or maintaining these plantings for a year or two, and then turning it over to the city or county from that point forward. So yeah, those long-term maintenance plans are really important. Obviously for the health of the trees and plantings themselves, but also for the community to come together around these plantings and continue to nurture them after the folks who planted them are gone. So identifying those partners is something that we're used to doing and working with. And the Texas Forest Service is helping us into kind of creating those resources for educating folks on best practices for planting and for maintenance as well. So that's how we're addressing it with our particular ones. And then we're also choosing native species as well. So we're working with nurseries around the state, ensuring there's several different ecoregions. As you probably already know, there's a number of ecoregions in the state of Texas. What will grow in West Texas will not grow in East Texas, and vice versa. So we've taken into account those 5 major regions of the state, the native species for those regions, and we're only going to be planting those as well. So that's another way we address it.
Do you interface or interact with the Wildflower Center at all?
We do. They actually provided some of our planting, some of the plants for our last planting in San Marcos. But yeah, we're going to continue to build that relationship as well. And then I've got an eye on native seeds here in Texas as well, since they are doing a fabulous job with wildflower seeds and grass seeds, and now even some pocket prairie that we're seeing along roads too, which are excellent for riparian, and then also again for the air quality as well.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, does anybody else have a question? Any other questions from folks? Okay, well, we can let you go, Sarah. Thanks so much for coming. It was really interesting. It's really very sort of inspiring portfolio of stuff that you all do. I will contact you a little later this afternoon and just get you in contact with, if you haven't contacted our kind of intern person, if you want your job posted,
that would be great.
And I'll just send you an email, and if you want to post it, we're happy to post it. So
yeah, and if anybody thinks of any other questions after this presentation, obviously just send me an email or give me a phone call. I'm happy to take questions or inquiries afterwards as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks a lot, and thanks everybody, and we'll see folks next fall.
Bye everyone.
Take care. Thanks a lot.